Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our conversation, Dad Possible, a conversation with homeschool dads. I appreciate you coming. My name is Darren Jones. I'm Senior Counsel and Director of Group Services with HSLDA, and it is my pleasure to invite some homeschool dads to today's discussion. We have Franz Morato and Tom Ziemnick, and hopefully we'll be joined a little later by Lorenzo James. For everyone joining us, can you go ahead and let us know where you're watching from in the comments? Franz Morato works full-time as a contractor with Z-Best Wall Coverings, and he's married to HSLDA's bilingual consultant, Kareem Morato. And Tom Ziemnick works full-time at Patrick Henry College, with whom we share a campus, as the Vice President for Advancement. Lorenzo James is a 30-year veteran of the Metropolitan Police Department, and he also is married to one of our consultants, a high school consultant named Lorenzo James. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for being part of this discussion today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, Tom, could I have you give a little introduction to yourself and your family today, please?
Sure. Thank you so much, Darren. It is really a pleasure to be here. As Darren mentioned, I'm Vice President for Advancement at Patrick Henry College, which is here in Purcellville, Virginia. And I've been married to my wife, Nancy, for it'll be 27 years this year. And we have 3 children, boy, girl. We have 22 who's now married, 19 and 13. And we've homeschooled from start to finish. Tried a little bit of everything along the way, but we've been in it the whole time.
Thank you, Tom. Franz, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Sure. Well, my wife, the one is my wife now, we met here in this country. We come out alone like a single people, and, thanks to the Lord, we meet here in Fairfax area, in the Fairfax County area. And then, we marry, and we have now 3 kids, which is, they're already grown up. And also we homeschool since they were born practically. And we just launched the first one to college this past year. So what a journey. And it was it's a great opportunity for me to be with you guys today to share all our experiences here.
Thanks, Franz. For those of you who are joining us, we have several homeschool dads on the conversation today. In introduction to myself, as far as the homeschool aspect of it, my wife and I have been married a little over 20 years now. We've got 4 children who we've homeschooled all the way. We've graduated one, have one graduating in a couple months, and then 2 more still going. And we've been team homeschooling for about the last 8 or 9 years or so.
Mm.
Let's go to the first question here that we had brought up to us, which is, how did your families get started homeschooling? Was it maybe that you knew someone who homeschooled when you were a kid, or did you know someone else who was homeschooling? So, Franz, would you be willing to start off with that one? How did you guys get into homeschooling?
Well, this is go a while ago, especially when I was in my country. And while I was a young one, I hear a lot about the homeschooling in my country back there in Bolivia. And I hear about, this homeschooling in military people and also in missionary people. So, I was very curious about this here. And I started kind of opening my ears about this. What is that homeschooling? How that works. Personally, my experience is I attend to a school like any regular kid here to the county. I was there in my normal years. So for me, it was like an open eye when I started learning a little more about homeschooling back there in my country. So practically, when I came to this country and I met my wife and we married, and I said to her, look, how about homeschooling? And she says like, what is the homeschooling? I said, something I hear, why we don't try this here? And we were like in the land of a lot of thousands of questions, how this is going to work. And she says, I don't know, we never done this. We never seen nobody doing this here before. What is in your mind? How are we going to do this here? I said, like, look, let's inform ourselves a little more about this here. What is out there? My wife, she was about to finish college in those days from George Mason, and she became a teacher. So and she kind of have better taste about the homeschooling and the Fairfax County School as well. And she says, probably we can do this here. Probably we can do this here. So I said, let's go for it, because we think we're gonna have a better chance for them to influence our kids, in a better way. So we were like that family that trying to find out how this is gonna work with a lot of questions and wondering what's gonna happen. But it was a good beginning. I'll say it's a good beginning. Really, we started there.
Okay. And Tom, how about you? Did you ask your wife right at the beginning too if you were going to homeschool?
Yeah, wow. It's eerily similar what Franz went through in many ways. I'll just go back to the beginning because, as I said, we started homeschooling really from the beginning. But it's funny, we were already homeschooling, thinking back, and we didn't even realize it. Our oldest, at a very young age, like many kids, was already showing signs of we like to say he was being a little odd. He was reading by 2. He was doing math for fun. He already knew every country and every country's capital by 3. So for us, it was a cultural and kind of an academic reason to look for an alternative. And because we were not Christians yet, but we were fairly conservative. And we lived in the San Francisco Bay Area at the time. And even in the early 2000s, the schools there, preschool, kindergarten, it was absurd what they were teaching. And frankly, it was borderline obscene. So, and we also, as Franz mentioned, we wanted to have influence and not just, teachers, but who their friends were and such. So I was not going to put them in school. And I actually had never heard of homeschooling. And I was in sales at the time. And a client of mine, because I'm having this lament way back then, and he goes, well, we homeschool. And I said, well, what's that? And he's like, yeah, we just do a homeschool. And I said, well, is that legal? And all those same questions we've all probably talked about or asked. And so that set me into researching homeschooling. I actually visited that friend and his family, and it was funny. Nancy and I went there, and all the kids were lined up, and they greeted us, and they said, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Ziemnick. And they were polite. They were kind to each other. They talked directly to us. I mean, honestly, it felt like a laboratory experiment. It was really strange. And yet it was strange that felt right.
Okay.
And I just said, you know what? We got home that night, and I said, Nancy, I think we need to homeschool. And of course, she looked at me and said, yeah, good luck. Let me know how it goes.
Right. So I have a little different experience in that because both my wife and I actually were homeschooled. Me for the last 2 years and Sarah for the last 4. So I had a very short list of qualities that I wanted in a wife. But one on that list was at least willing to homeschool. And so when we started having kids, that was actually kind of the expectation, was we would at least start with homeschooling and we would see how things went from there. So I would like to talk a little bit about kind of the nuts and bolts. What does homeschooling actually look like for your family? So, Tom, I guess I will be in the place of your wife here and say, let me know how it went. Tell me some about it.
Sure. It's so funny. We've done it all. It's really dependent upon the particular child. It's dependent upon our family situation. I'm not necessarily a homeschooling absolutist. I'm much more of a parental rights purist, where I feel that one size doesn't always fit all, and seasons change and such. But I think the most consistent thing that we've done throughout our entire homeschooling career is that we've homeschooled year round. And for us, homeschooling was never really something we did. It was just part and parcel of who we were as a family. And maybe sometimes because we didn't want to, hammer down schedules as well. And so if we didn't do something a certain day, we had other days to complete it. But it was also, we didn't want to conform necessarily to the world's view of when school should happen and then summer break. And that way we go on vacation when no one else did, and we could just do things when we wanted to. So our homeschooling has been pretty relaxed, but we've done co-ops, we've done online, we've done just books. We've done a little bit of everything, with the most consistent thing being that we've always been year round.
Okay. We're going to add Lorenzo James into the conversation now. Thank you very much for being here, sir. We appreciate it. And unfortunately, he's muted. All right. So, Lorenzo, we appreciate you being here. I understand you got caught in traffic. Right now, we're discussing what homeschooling has looked like for your family, kind of the nuts and bolts of it. So, welcome to the conversation. How about if you jump right in, tell us some about what does homeschooling look like for your family and your involvement as the dad?
Well, homeschooling, first of all, looks great from a family, from a perspective of my wife, who leads it for our family. When we first got into it, homeschooling, I looked at my wife and she said, well, we're homeschooling our kids. I said, is this legal? And I said, you know what I do for a living. I cannot be going to jail for, something that might not be legal. And she brought home the paperwork and, gave me all the ups and downs about it, which is more ups and downs. And next thing I know, we was homeschooling. We homeschool all of our kids. We have 7 wonderful kids, five girls and 2 boys. And we have 2 that's already graduated from the homeschool.
That's fantastic.
Great.
Thanks. Franz, what are some of the things that you have done as a dad to be involved with the homeschooling of your kids?
Practically, most of the education at home, it was in my wife's part.
Okay.
She was the one that stayed home, stay home mom for them, and she planned every day, because we right in the beginning, I'm talking about 12 years ago, where we started with the first 2 ones. They are apart in 2 years. So those 2, they were our first experiment here in the house, and we create the atmosphere first for them, rooms, desks, areas for them to have their books and all that. And practically, mom was already with the scheduling. We're gonna have this class here, math from these hours to these hours, then music and and so on. All the classes they were supposed to go according to the age. So one that my part as a dad, it was always to make sure they have the physical, not the academic part, but the physical in terms, what you need. Do you need all the the equipment that you need? Is that something we had to move, prepare, room, temperature, whatever? That was my part. So, and as they grow, of course, it changed, because I had to go be part of that. Hey, we have classes this hour in the clubs. I had to go. Well, let's go. This is mom's gonna stay. I go. So it was a lot of coordination, and you need to in this business. You need mom and dad together working all the scheduling, because as they grow, it's like I had to go sports, I had to go music, I had to go and do this up and as the co-op classes. So we share the space in terms of moving, accommodating, and of course, but the basic teaching was my wife. All of it. That was a lot of coordination in our part. So it was a really everyone. It was important in this work. All the hands together, putting all the energy, scheduling the whole week. Like I was saying, Tom, we have that freedom and space to move around, but it had to be coordinated.
Okay. I'd like to talk a little bit about that with you 3, as far as the coordination and talking and working together. Because one of the ways that Sarah and I have worked on this, and it looks different, season to season, but at least for the last couple of years, what's worked for us is on the weekends, I sit down and do basically the lesson plans. During the week, this child will be working on this thing, this child will be working on this, and then I have a couple things in the evening, but my wife is doing a lot of the work during the day, which means she can kind of change things on the fly if we need to. But how is it, Franz says this is coordination. You have to work together. So Lorenzo, can you talk a bit about how you and Lanissa have worked on coordinating, figuring out who does what?
Well, as I stated before, my wife is the educator. A lot of times I'm out of the house because of being law enforcement. My schedule has impacted the homeschool program that she has put together for our kids a lot.
Oh,
One week I might have this schedule, next week I might have another schedule, then I might flop back to this schedule, I might come home and then I have to go back out. So, but when the weeks that I have the steady schedule, like in the morning time before I go in, because I used to go in like midday, I would try to get up and start the kids on the program, lesson program that she had already set out. And I try to help fill in the gaps there. Days that she has co-op, because she runs the co-op at our church and also our classical program at our church. I normally try to help in and teach stuff that's going to help children with later on in life, like life skills, mechanics, the basics of mechanics. I taught them photography. I taught them also basketball, intro to basketball, because I did coaching. Wherever she needs me to jump in, I try to fill in best as possible with whatever it is. I don't jump in her way and try to say, oh, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. I let her roll with her flow. And, whatever her plan is, I try to roll with it and try to fit in, whatever schedule I have, try to help fit in to help her out.
all right. So, Tom, Lorenzo and Lanissa have done, kind of a educational to practical split. Did you and your wife ever come to that where she was doing some and you were doing some, or were you the primary all the way through?
Yeah, it's that's what I love about homeschooling, and just there's no one particular way to do it or one particular role you have to fill. As I said, it was my idea in the beginning. So Nancy said, when she said good luck, she meant it. So for the first, I'd say 3 years or so, I was the primary educator, and I loved it, honestly, especially when the kids were young. When kid number 2 came along and we started having more kids, and Nancy started to see the fruit of a lot of this, she really got involved. And so since then, we've done more of a sharing ability, or sharing with a lot of the duties. But, it's funny, as the kids got older too, they do a lot on their own. And I think Nancy really sees her role not necessarily as primary teacher, but more as a manager or a principal. I mean, especially it teaches the kids to be a little more self-motivated. We're not doing any child-directed learning. We're still sort of having a structure around it, but it doesn't always have to be just her or just me doing the teaching. So, and my life has ebbed and flowed too. I had more flexibility at certain times with work. So it's just changed from season to season.
Okay. So, Franz, with you and Karim, how have you balanced it between you? Are there certain areas or subjects that you really like getting involved, and other ones where you say, oh no, that's not mine? Tell us about it, if you would.
The first years of homeschooling with the kids, it's I would say the easy years, because that's kind of the basic information, how they grow. We were just adjusting with them because it was a character also in their part, how they like to learn things. We discovered that in the process. How they what things they like to listen and learn, and what is easy for them. So we discovered that for the first year. So my wife, we changed curriculums according their need, and that was a good discovery in there, and through the process. And we were doing parts. She was doing the majority of the teaching in those years. But as they grow up, it was more challenging, because now you had to get into math, into physics. So we had to hire, just go into tutors, in specific lessons that they were already in depth. It was something that we needed to use the outside help, in this case, another teachers that they were willing to, they have the space to teach our kids in a part-time or out of time school. And we were there just asking questions. What do your teacher is saying? We were there like the backup person to ask the questions as they were moving in a different direction, and be part of that. So we were always every step of the way behind them, and not sometimes my wife says, this is too much for me. This is too deep. I cannot go with this here. Like Tom was saying, no, she says, no, we need a tutor for that. So let's do it. Let's look for the tutor out there. Let's find that person, and we kind of, check around, I'll do our work there looking for the person, best teacher. We find the best teachers out there. And there were, we were taking them to classes out there, sometimes through the computer, video classes and all that. So, we were there observing, listening. Hey, is this making sense to you? Are you learning something? Is that good, positive? If they say, yes, I like this. And they start just sharing their experience with the teachers, and everyone, they have a different experience as they learn. So we were very in touch in teachings, in school, in sports, in anything that they do. We ask, do you like this here? Would you like to go further, deeper in this here? We ask questions, and they were, it's very difficult. Why is difficult? We were always listening to help them to go through the process. So yeah, that was a lot of involvement here in our part. Karina and I, we were just very alert about these things.
Brenda mentioned just now in the comments that one of the things that she noticed about homeschoolers before they got into it was the closeness of the families. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit. Has homeschooling helped you to be more intentional, building relationship with your kids? What have you seen with sibling relationships? Do you suddenly attain paradise on earth by homeschooling? Tom, you laughed. That means you want to talk about it. How about
there is no paradise on earth, Darren. We know that. So don't set unrealistic expectations. No, homeschooling will not be just a blissful joy. It has been great. As I said, homeschooling was not something we did. It was part of just who we were as a family. So the amount of time that you get to spend with each other, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's just I've developed amazing relationships with my kids, even through the pain and the trials and the tribulations. It's just been awesome. And actually, I think the most rewarding thing relationship-wise has been the relationships I've seen develop between siblings. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what gives a parent almost, the most hope is when I see a brother honoring and loving on a brother or a sister. It's just, for me, that gives me the greatest joy when I see them love each other.
Lorenzo, how about you? How has homeschooling affected your family relationships?
Well, Darren, it has affected them very well. When we first started, when everybody started off with no kids and everything, and then when we had our first child, and then we had a second child, and then we had a third one that started going to school, then we tried the private school thing. And of course, they were out of the house, from, I would say, 8, 9 o'clock that morning till 2, 3 o'clock that evening. And then my oldest child, who was doing gymnastics, had gymnastics from 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening till 9 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. So everybody was going in different directions. So we got to see each other whenever, and we didn't get to spend a lot of time together till basically the weekend came. Mm-hmm. So we started having more children and everything. And then my wife dropped it on me that we was doing homeschooling, and, it turned out to be great. I mean, my kids, they pick with each other, but, they are working together. Yes. They are like, if one kid don't understand this part of math or don't understand this reading, they learn to lean on each other to ask the older one. The younger one would come and ask the older one, what does this says? What does this mean? Or do you understand this math? Because if mom or dad is either busy or I'm out of the house, they have worked together on trying to put it together. And with us just celebrating 26 years of marriage, it has brought us together tighter because, like I said, my wife, with the cooking, we're not eating out as much. We are working together with the family, spending time and everything. I don't know if they told you, Darren, we take our homeschooling on the road now with the RV and everything. Right. Yeah, sitting in the RV as if we're in motion down the road and everything, doing their schoolwork. So, I mean, they really talked to each other more and they got to know each other better. Like I told one of my kids the other day, I said, well, look, not to say that if you wasn't doing homeschooling, but if you wasn't doing homeschooling, everybody wouldn't be together more often as we are now, because you will be doing this event, this child will be doing this event. But now when the events come out before this pandemic came, everybody is at that event supporting that child.
The first homeschool family that I ever knew was actually an RV homeschool family.
Wow.
They traveled around the country doing some mission work in 1984 and 85. And that was the first time I'd ever heard of it, actually.
Wow.
Franz, what about you? Have you found that homeschooling has helped you with your family relationships, your relationships with your kids, or theirs with each other?
Yes, Darren, tremendously. What experience is to see, I'll say this, since the moment they were sitting with us in the homeschooling, in the young age, 5, 6 years old, to the 16, 17 years old, when they are graduating with us, with their parents from our homeschooling, that period of time, it was what I experienced. Every one of you, their parts. What I experienced, because you witness every stage of their lives growing, maturing, and becoming this young generation, a new generation, which is they taking with them not only the basic understanding and learning the school system, but also receiving and then the family values. The inheritance, you transfer that to your kids, what you are, your roots, who you are, a father, mother, family, and they taking with them that part. And that's what they make. I think that was make them such a unique people out there to face whatever they had to face, because they have a character out of the family, out of those roots, out of that relationship. When they move out, they know who they are, they know what they have, they know what they accomplished, and they're ready to go. So we have that experience in that process. And I believe, like Tom and Lorenzo say, we build that relationship, we build up that closeness, that we know that family is important. Family is important because we help each other to be better, and they have that very clear in their minds. They are very individual as a character, but they know their place in this world, and what they had to do outside, out of our home. So it's tremendous. It's something that you cannot buy out there anywhere. So it's unique.
I like that, what you said about having children who are unique and who know who they are. I like that. That's good. This one's going to be kind of a combo question. If you can think of kind of a short way to answer this one. Looking back over the years that you guys have been homeschooling, it's been about the same for all of us. I think we've all been homeschooling now about, sounds like 14 years or so. Think of one joy and one challenge that you've had. One joy and one challenge. And I will start. One joy that I had was when my oldest daughter got into 12th grade. She is quite a bit like me, and so she was interested in the same kind of books that I was. And so we spent an entire year, her literature class in 12th grade was studying classics of fantasy and science fiction and discussing them and writing about them. It was a blast. It was wonderful. The challenge has been that the next child along is very much not like me, and trying to figure out what his interests are and his learning and how best to approach that. And this year, his senior year, I feel like I finally understood, and I wish I had now a couple more years to do it. So that's a joy and a challenge from me. Lorenzo, would you be willing to go first? A joy and a challenge from homeschooling.
Sure. My joy, Tom, one of my favorite things that I like to do was photography. I taught myself how to do photography and everything. And what was a joy, I never really said anything to my kids, say, well, you're going to learn photography. I want you to do this. They kind of picked up on, followed me around. And when I say they, all not 7, because the youngest one, she is just following me around. But my 1 through 5 kids, the first 5, they like followed me around and learned photography, and they got an interest in photography. So I got to teach them, firsthand what I have learned with photography. And like my oldest right now, she takes better pictures than I do. Me and my wife, we agreed. And she said, are you okay with this? I said, I'm fine. I love to see my kids go further than I did. I'm not trying to hold them back.
Amen.
And so my second oldest daughter, she has learned photography as well. She takes my camera, and I bought them all cameras, DSL cameras, and she takes the camera and she'll take pictures. And next thing I know, I come back, I look on my memory card to see if it's empty. So when I have to do a photo shoot or something, do I have space? And I'm like, well, who took these pictures? I did. Well, why do you let us know? These pictures are great. So then on down to my 3rd and 4th and 5th kids, they did the same thing. My daughter, Lanisa, she really follows me around now, and she grabs a hold of my camera. When she see me with the camera, do I need to bring my camera, or can I just use yours? I said, sweetie, you can use anything that you want of mine. And I recently just upgraded my phone from the iPhone 6S, which is older, to the 12 Pro Max, and they done found out the photography stuff that's on there. And every time I turn around, they're snatching my phone up, and then I look at these pictures. These pictures look just like we're looking at each other in person. The fallback I had is not being able to help my kids with some type of schoolwork that they have, such as like the new math that's out. I'm old school. The stuff that was back then is not what's out now, and that's where I have a fallback on. So I have to go look at my wife and like, honey, one of the kids came and asked me, how do you do this? And I had to tell them, I had to, just like you see me scratch, I had to scratch my face, like, hold on for a minute. And so, she sits down with me and she tries to show me where to look and try to help them out. That's the fallback I have, is just not being able to understand the new work that's out there. But with the homeschooling, there's really no pressure. You have a lot of time, more time than you would have sitting in a classroom, because what I've learned, because it happened to me, the teachers, they keep up with the class. If you have 30 kids in the class and there's only 1 kid that's falling behind or not clear of it, they keep the class going. And they tell you need to catch up, or you need to go out and get some extra additional help. With the homeschooling program, that's not like that. We can either go to another family that's good with math, for instance, or we can get the what's the proper word? The proper help. Bottom line, we can go look for examples on how to help our child with their math.
Franz, a joy and a challenge.
Well, let me say this here. What a joy is to see my 3 kids being involved with music. We discovered that through the process of homeschooling. In the early age, we say, guys, what do you want to play? Any instrument, And of course, they were like very little, saying, we don't know. Well, we have a piano. Let's go piano. And we find these tutors, piano teachers. That they were in, training them, teaching them, and what a joy to see them growing and learning instruments and playing instruments. And when you see it, I always ask, I say, for my, especially, I'm a dad that I ask things that probably I'm an old-fashioned dad. I say, for my birthday, I want a special song for my birthday. So I don't ask for gifts. I say, give me your talent. Give me what you do, what you can do. So these kids prepare their songs and they play for me, and it's such a joy. My oldest plays piano. Second one, Kayla, plays guitar, acoustical guitar very well. The third one is also in piano and singing classes. So when I hear these kids performing those things, it's like, oh my goodness, it's better than a CD player out there. It's your kids, it's the best thing. And what a joy from them to hear all these is this process of learning. And the part that was a very challenging for me now, especially with the first one, my oldest girl, now that she's in college, it was teaching her to drive. She blew up 2 of my tires in my car, and I was very cool and patient, while she was learning. And because I say, it's okay, you're learning how to maintain your car inside the 2 lines. So it was like for her, it was like, wow, this is not easy. But at the end, she got her license and all that. But it was we had to go through those processes. The bitter and the good and the sweet things that you go through the process. It was okay.
Tom, a joy
Sure.
or a challenge for homeschooling?
Yeah. I think I'll start with a challenge first. I was just thinking through this. In California, when we started, we were very much an island unto ourselves. And I have to admit, especially when the kids are younger, I like that. It just, we control the environment, everything. And when we moved to Virginia, it was just a blessing, somewhat of a homeschooling mecca here. But at the same time, we got caught up in what I would say is over socialization. I mean, friends, it's so funny when the world says, oh, homeschooling, they're not socialized. And I'm just like, we need to stop. We need to pull back, because whether it's sports, extracurricular, friends, all the things that are going on, it can just tear a family apart. A little bit like Lorenzo was talking in the beginning of their life. It's so a lot of times I was trying to pull us back from things, and I just felt, and I think the homeschooling suffered, the relationships suffered from that. So you have to learn to say no sometimes. And so that was tough. The joy, I'm going to again piggyback on what Lorenzo was saying. I love when selfishly there are things that you are passionate about that all of a sudden your kids organically, in a sense, take on those passions and you can share them together. And so whether it's sports interests, whether it's literature interests, Darren, you and I share some of the same science fiction, fantasy interests. It's really cool to have a deep conversation with your kid about something that brings you so much joy. And then finally, when our oldest just got married, he, after the wedding was done and they're about to take off, he hands me 2 letters folded up, said, one for you, one for mom. Don't read them till we're gone. And, I hadn't cried, and I'm a crier. I hadn't cried the whole time. And I'm sitting in the hotel room. I said, Nancy, here's yours. Here's mine. Oh, yeah. So I was just weeping in the shower. So 1 pager, but it just, again, it validated all my faults, frailties, and everything else. And yet this idea that he knew we loved him and brought him up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord and pointed him in that direction with all our faults and failures and everything else. He just said, thank you. And I just, that for me was like this pinnacle of joy. And I said, thank you, God, for that moment.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So moving from the sublime that Tom's talking about down to the very nuts and bolts, we've been asked for some practical tips or advice to help homeschool parents work together in their homeschooling. So if you've got 2 or 3 practical, here's how we did it things. Franz, let's start with you. What are a couple practical tips for how you and Karim worked together to homeschool your kids?
First thing, we discovered through the process that there is no limits what you can bring into your house as a curriculum, planning the school activity according their age. And we research with my wife, what is best out there for them. And we also, we make sure that if this is going to work with the character of the kid, because some of them are like they go faster and some of them, they just take their time. So you have to know each kid character, it's not the same like the first, second, or third, or fourth, as many kids you have. But the 3 kids that we have to use a different methodology, different system, different curriculum for them to learn. And we discovered that in the process. Once we discovered that, and we put that in work, and then they were just absorbing. They just was absorbing in their own rhythm. So we know that that's working. So practically, we discover as a parents first what is right for them according to their abilities, and second, encourage them. Keep moving forward. Keep giving them more material. Keeping them, if that's motivating them to learn, and they stepping into the process, then we keep going with that. So practically, we as a parents, we were like one step ahead of them, looking for what is out there that can be worked. My wife, and most of the time, my wife and I, we attend to these conventions, which is the stop before the COVID-19, the homeschooling conventions, where they have so much material, where they have different systems, they have different books, and they have fiction books and all that, and we bring all of that to the table, especially according to their age, and we had to research and look and find, and then work through the process, through the year, and we discovered a lot. Some of the experiences that we have sometimes, and one of my kids, with the boy, we have to change the curriculum because it was too much for him. So we say, no, this is not going to work. We have to change. We say this is not working for him. So we were very open to see the results, and so we have to modify things around, and it helped. It helped for him to keep moving, but that was very, very. We had to be very careful with that. Okay. And the school teaching in terms of my wife always trying to be with that in a systematic time. This is the time for the school. This is the time you wake up in the morning. It's not like you just wake up whenever you want. It's like we have a schedule here. For them to understand that mom and dad, they had to wear the hat of the teacher. It was a transition to understand for them to. It's not that imam. It's my teachers. It was very hard the first years, but as they learn that concept, they mature in this year. This is this is time to school now. Let me deal this with my parents, as not my parents, but my teachers, my coaches. So it was a different way to absorb what we were doing here at home. But that was a routine. It was a routine, clear routine, and for them to understand that we have a beginning, we have an end, we have your homework and all of those details there. So it was a process there.
Okay, Tom, practical nuts and bolts advice. How would you encourage husbands and wives to work together?
Sure. I don't know how practical this is. Maybe it's too big picture in that sense, Darren, but I guess the biggest thing I've learned is that we have a tremendous amount of influence when it comes to our kids, but ultimately we have no control. God is ultimately in control, and that took a lot. It took a while for me to really come to grips with that, because I did want to micromanage their lives, our lives in many ways, and we do influence it, but we're not in control, and especially when it comes to their spiritual lives. I mean, they are on their own individual spiritual journeys. I can't make them believe. We can point them, we can teach them in the word of the Lord, and we can point them in a direction, but ultimately it's their decision. And I don't know the path that God has them on. And so you have to release that and give that to Him. The last thing I'd say is slow down and enjoy it. And I think we've all sort of touched on this a little bit, but it goes by in a heartbeat. And I just coached my last boys varsity basketball game, and my middle son's done. And over the last few years, in the midst of a season, get me out of it. I mean, work stress, team stress, everything. I mean, it's just a pain. And then the very second it's over, I'm going, where did it go? Can I get it back? And I can't ever. So try and enjoy the moment of your homeschooling, even amidst the trials and tribulations and such. Just embrace it and enjoy it.
Lorenzo, I'd like some practical tips from you. How do you work together with your wife?
Well, first, I would say, Darren, is that my wife, she communicates with me. She talks to me about what the kids need to be done. So if she say like she's working with you all with HSLDA, I'm home and everything, a lot of times I take off work or I'm still able to work because I still have old enough kids to be able to stay home and help and do things. So with that said, communication is a big thing with us, with my wife and I. When she speaks, it's like the old saying, when she speaks, I listen. So what I try to tell people is that if you love your kids, invest in your kids. If you're going to invest into them, stay with the game plan. So, like I said, my wife came up with the game plan of the homeschooling, and just keep the faith and stay on board with it. Don't let your kids sidetrack you and be like, pretty much like Tom was saying, we have a schedule, and Franz was saying we have a schedule. This is not somewhere, okay, you're home and you think you're going to sleep all day. No. You got to get up and do your schoolwork as if being in traditional school. What I tell some of the other fathers that's involved with our co-op is that stay in your kids' life. This is an opportunity to get close to your kids. Mm-hmm. This is your opportunity to show them things. I speak of my oldest son. I showed him and my daughter, who has put down a family room floor for us. We went up from carpet to wood floor. So they are learning this stuff. So I said, this is an opportunity to learn some skills of cutting, how to do certain things that you won't have to pay nobody else to do, that you can do yourself. So basically the nuts and bolts is, like I say, is communication, get involved with what they're doing, keep them on track of what they started. And like I always tell my kids, whatever you start, you finish it. You don't leave it left behind or leave it undone.
Mm-hmm. That's really what I'd say is the most important thing for Sarah and me, is the communication. Mm-hmm. And that's more difficult for me than it is for her. I've had to learn that. But by now, the other thing that we've done is we've kind of assigned each other roles. That it is my role to be the planner. I'm the one who sets out the schedule of these pages have to be done, this lesson has to be done, I'll do this with the kids. And it's not at all unusual that I will get a text in the middle of the day that says, teenager is melting down, be advised that the assignment for today has been moved to tomorrow. Or I will get home and find out, there's a special event that we get to go to. And so the stuff that I was going to get to do with the kids, Sarah has done earlier. Or we're going to do that on Saturday because we have this special event tonight. So communication and flexibility has been really key for us. I'd like to wind down. A couple more questions for each of you. And the first one, we'll go kind of in reverse order for this one. Lorenzo first. A word of encouragement for homeschool dads. They actually do exist out there. The dads like us.
They do.
The homeschooling. So, Lorenzo, a word of encouragement.
My words of encouragement to dads is, your children is your best investment. Your wife is your best investment. I can only speak for my wife. She puts a lot into this homeschooling. She has invested a whole lot towards getting a curriculum together for them, because I wouldn't even know where to begin at, or where did we begin. I can go back and tell you from the beginning, I was like lost. So I tell the dads, if the wife is going to take the lead, don't be afraid to let her take the lead. Just jump in. Don't let her take the lead by herself and think she's in it by herself, but jump in and help wherever you can. Don't just because, how can I say, you got a full-time job. There's still time in between the job and the homeschooling that you can fit in somewhere. Find your part. Because, like I said, your children is your best investment that you was blessed with through God for you and your wife. And let them fall through the wayside. That would be your fault, nobody else's fault.
Thank you.
Amen.
Yeah. All right, Franz. Your turn. A word of encouragement for homeschool dads.
I totally agree with Lorenzo, because really it's the investment is total that we do as a parents. I'll say this here to the parents, that to encourage them that one of the number one needs in this world and the whole world is coaches, and the coaches could be a father, could be a mother, could be an aunt, some relative. We need coaches in this world. We need coaches that are serious to help to show them through our testimonies, our lifestyle, who we are, and coaching them to be the best they can be for tomorrow. In parents, that we need parents today. We need a lot of parents, a lot. And the call, I believe, the number call for this world is to be a father, to be a coach. And the kids, they need that. They need to see the example. They need to see what is to be a man today. What is to be the man that takes care of the family? What is the man that will be walking with their kids from beginning to end? They need to see those things. Commitment, to be aggressive to, hey, we're gonna finish this together. You're gonna end up out there and you're gonna be somebody that we're gonna work this through together. Kids, they need to hear that. Families and mothers, they need to hear that. We need the fathers today. We need a lot of them. We need good coaches there, so we can keep going with these new generations that are coming up and they have to face different challenges. We need coaches.
Thank you, Franz. Tom, what's your word of encouragement for dads?
I'm just going to go right, especially with what Lorenzo said. I would just say, hey, Dad, it is your homeschool too. Don't get caught saying, well, she handles that. Now, there are roles, just like Lorenzo and Franz said, that we all take at different times, but never say, well, the homeschooling's all hers, and I'm just, I make the money or do whatever. It's your homeschool too. And so whether you're involved a little or a lot, communicating with her, understanding what your role is, you're part of it. And so just make sure that she knows and the entire family knows you're part of it.
Yeah,
that's good. I go around giving workshops at homeschool conferences. Didn't get to last year, but went to my first one last week, and that was fun. One of the workshops I do is to dads, and I tell them homeschooling can be really hard. Mm-hmm. Homeschooling, though, can be a lot of fun, especially like when you get into those deep conversations with your kids. And for me, part of the joy of homeschooling has been getting to sit down and pick out curriculum and then go to my wife and say, here, this is what I'm thinking for this year. So I see homeschooling itself as a real joy. Besides all of what we've talked about of the relationships that it builds with our kids, and I think just the educational aspect of it is just plain a lot of fun. And that's one of the reasons I've loved team teaching with my wife. Yeah. We're going to finish up with one question, and it's maybe a little lighter. Got any plans with your family that you're looking forward to this summer, should the Lord tarry and the COVID go away? Franz, how about you? Anything special planned for this summer?
Well, we just got the news from my daughter in Pittsburgh. She's coming and she needs to take some classes in George Mason here. So practically we're already planning that. Like I say, we are still behind her in all that she's doing in college. And we had to modify our summer, our breaks. But anyway, what we do is my wife and I, we know how to coordinate this together. I take the kids out, to the beach to have a vacation, just to relax. She stays or I stay and she goes. So, we try to kind of reach all of them, so they can have some kind of fun. Also, in her part, we'll be working still in the college here, but we make sure that everyone is, taking a break out there. So we always coordinate things, doing new, trying for them to have fun around, just for them to relax, just a little break. I think it's a good thing.
Okay. Tom, how about you guys? Anything on?
No, we just have an annual camping trip that we're looking forward to. And if there's, and I hate to speak out of turn too, Darren, but I don't know if there's time, maybe after Lorenzo says that, I would like to say just a brief word of encouragement to the moms as well. Mm-hmm. But if we're out of time, I totally understand that as well.
Nope, we can finish up with that.
Right.
All right, Lorenzo, anything from you that you're looking forward to this summer?
It's funny that you said. My wife has already planned out our summer. We'll be RVing through the summer.
All right.
So we're gonna be, exploring new locations, campsites. Try to teach the kids some more nature. I mean, a lot of them have been in Girl Scouts, and my oldest son has been in the Boy Scouts. So we're gonna be doing some nature stuff. But just enjoying the RV that we got now and keeping the family together.
Yep.
That's good.
All right. So, Tom had pointed out that I had missed the last question on here, which is yes. After a word of encouragement to homeschool dads, how about a word of encouragement to the homeschool moms? So I am going to take the privilege of moderator and take this one first. You moms are amazing. My mom taught me. My mother-in-law taught my wife. You did a great job. And the more that I talk to homeschool moms in my job as a lawyer here, the more I'm amazed at what you can accomplish with your kids. Truly inspiring.
Amen.
Yes.
Franz, how about you?
I want to encourage the single mothers. I want to encourage those that are without the help of the father. Don't throw the towel, because what you're doing is great. What you're doing is like Lorenzo. He said you invest investing in your kids for the future. I want to encourage you that at the end of the tunnel, you're gonna see great things. You're gonna see potential, and your kids. Keep going. Try to hold on to, friends, family, pastors, if you're there, the community. Hold on to them. Be encouraged. It's gonna be great. It's gonna turn great there. It's a lot of work, but it's gonna turn into a very good thing and positive finish.
Lorenzo, how about you?
Like Franz said, there's a lot of single parents, a lot of single moms out there that's homeschooling. I also say don't throw in the towel. You have a lot of help within the homeschool program that other parents would help you out. And you also have some students that has been through, how can I say, the level. Your child might be the middle school now, and their child might be high school. You might not understand like some of the stuff I didn't understand, but a high school child might be able to help your child out through the process. You all do a lot. You moms do a lot. Like Darren also said, when I had, some issues where I didn't understand something, my mom jumped in when my dad couldn't jump in to help out, or if he didn't understand. Who was there? Mom was there. And mom jumped in and helped me, or she got the help that I needed for me to make it through the rest of the way. Like Franz said, don't throw in that towel. Your children or your child is your best investment. And if you're going to invest, if that's your best investment, it is your job to give that child everything that you can.
Thank you. Tom, encouragement for the moms.
Yeah. They're so strong, so amazing, but I honestly feel like they're one of the most vulnerable groups out there. I think about what they're trying to do. There's so much tied up into what they're doing. And, oftentimes you may have one or two sets of grandparents that think they're crazy and are ruining their grandkids. We have a brother or sister that says, why are you doing this? This is just not wise. So I just encourage you, don't try to be perfect.
Yeah.
You're never going to be as good as your kids' greatest successes, and you're never going to be as bad as your kids' failures, because they're going to have both. Yeah. It doesn't matter if they don't learn Greek, Latin, and Hebrew and calculus by 10. It's okay. I would just encourage you, most of all, show them you love them. Bring them as close to the Lord as possible. Dads, we're spiritual leaders of the home. But ultimately, when I talk to adults, and people, they tell me the greatest spiritual influence in their lives were their moms. And so you have that ability to do that. And I just think it's such an amazing gift you have. Don't try and keep up with the Joneses. Remember, you're there to please the Lord. You're there to please God, not your neighbors. So, and be careful which books you read about homeschooling experts.
Yes. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you all so much for being here today. Thanks for sharing your insight and your perspectives. It's great to hear from homeschool dads about their experience, and I hope that this was helpful and encouraging for people today. If you're looking for further resources for homeschool dads, my wife Sarah and I actually wrote an article for HSLDA's court report that you might find helpful, and we'll post the link in the comments here. Thank you very much, Tom and Franz and Lorenzo. I really appreciate you being here. And to our guests, thanks for coming. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Great meeting you. Thanks, Darren. Bye now.